They say money can buy anything, but for millionaire Daniel Whitmore, no amount of wealth could prepare him for the moment he locked eyes with his black ex-girlfriend across Oxford's graduation ceremony, and the young doctor beside her, who was unmistakably his son. A secret kept for 22 years now threatens to shatter 3 lives as Daniel's privileged world collides with the family he never knew existed, forcing him to face the devastating choice he made when he chose family approval over true love. What happens when a powerful man who's used to controlling everything suddenly discovers his greatest achievement was never his success, but the brilliant son who grew up hating the father he never knew? Eleanor Carter has kept her son safe from rejection for 2 decades, but now the walls she built are crumbling as old feelings resurface, and Michael must decide if he can forgive the father who abandoned them both before he was even born. Will Daniel's desperate attempt to win back his family succeed, or will his wealth become the very thing that keeps them apart forever? Hit subscribe and leave a comment sharing whether you think some mistakes are too big to be forgiven, because this family's journey will make you question everything you thought you knew. About second chances, the morning sun peeked through the clouds as Daniel Whitmore stepped out of his sleek black car. He straightened his expensive blue tie and ran a hand through his dark hair, still thick despite his 32 years. The grand buildings of Oxford University stood tall and proud around him, just like he felt today. Daniel smiled to himself. Being invited to speak at the graduation dinner was a big deal. It showed how far he'd come since his own college days. His company was worth millions now, and everyone wanted to hear his success story. "Mr. Whitmore," called a professor, waving from the entrance. "We're so pleased you could join us today." Daniel nodded and walked toward the man, his shiny leather shoes clicking against the cobblestones. Families were gathering everywhere, hugging graduates in their black robes and taking photos. The air buzzed with excitement and pride. "The ceremony begins in 30 minutes, the professor said, "so we've saved you an excellent seat." "Thank you," Daniel replied, his eyes scanning the crowd out of habit. That's when he saw her. Time seemed to freeze. Standing near the entrance was a woman he hadn't seen in nearly 23 years. Her hair was shorter now, styled in neat twists that framed her face. Her skin, the rich brown color that had always reminded him of polished mahogany, glowed in the sunlight. She wore a stylish yellow dress that hugged her curves. Eleanor Carter, his college girlfriend. The woman who had broken his heart. But it wasn't Elena who made Daniel's breath catch in his throat. It was the young man standing beside her, tall and handsome, with light brown skin and a face that looked eerily familiar. The young man had Daniel's nose, Daniel's jawline, even the same way of standing with shoulders back and head slightly tilted. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. His mouth went dry. The professor was still talking, but the words sounded far away, like they were coming through water. "Mr. Whitmore, are you all right?" Daniel managed to nod. "Fine, just recognize someone? Well, shall we head inside?" the professor suggested. "In a minute," Daniel replied, unable to tear his eyes away from Elena and the young man. Could it be? The timing would be right. They had broken up 23 years ago, and this graduate looked to be in his early 20s. But surely Elena would have told him if she'd been pregnant. Wouldn't she? Before he could decide what to do, Eleanor turned and saw him staring. Her eyes widened in shock. For a moment, they just looked at each other across the crowded courtyard. Then she quickly turned away, putting a hand on the young man's back and guiding him toward the building. Daniel's legs moved before his brain could catch up. He needed answers. Now the great hall was packed with proud families as the graduation ceremony began. Daniel sat in his special seat in the front row, but he barely registered the speeches. His eyes kept darting to where Eleanor sat with her mother, Mrs. Carter, whose stern face he remembered all too well. When the names started being called, Daniel paid close attention. Finally he heard it. Michael Carter, Bachelor of Medicine with first-class honors. The young man he'd seen with Elena walked across the stage, his face serious but proud. Under the lights, the resemblance was even more striking. "That's my face," Daniel whispered to himself. Those were his eyes, his walk, even the slight dimple in his left cheek when he smiled at the dean. Daniel gripped the railing in front of him so hard his knuckles turned white. This was his son. He was sure of it now. The son he never knew existed. Across the hall, Elena watched Daniel's reaction. Their eyes met briefly, hers filled with panic. She quickly looked away, clapping loudly for Michael as he raised his diploma high. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. As soon as it ended, Daniel pushed through the crowd, determined to reach Elena before she could disappear. He found her outside, standing by a stone column. Michael had gone to take photos with friends. "Elena," Daniel said, his voice tight. She turned, her face composed but her eyes wary. "Daniel, it's been a long time." 23 years, he replied. "Is he mine?" Elena glanced around nervously. "This isn't the place. Is he mine?" Daniel repeated, louder this time. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "He doesn't know." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. "He doesn't know? How could you not tell him? How could you not tell me?" Elena's eyes flashed with anger. "You made it very clear what your priorities were. Your career, your family's approval. Not me. That doesn't give you the right to hide my son from me for 22 years. Mom?" They both turned to see Michael standing a few feet away, confusion written across his face. He looked even more like Daniel up close. The same height, the same slight crease between his eyebrows when he frowned. "Everything okay?" Michael asked, looking suspiciously at Daniel. Elena quickly composed herself. "Yes, honey. This is an old friend from university. Daniel Whitmore." Daniel stared at his son, unable to speak. This brilliant young doctor was his flesh and blood, and he hadn't even known he existed until today. Michael nodded politely, but didn't offer his hand. "Nice to meet you. Mom, Grandma's looking for us. The family photo, remember?" "Of course," Elena said, relief evident in her voice. "We'll be right there." As Michael walked away, she turned to Daniel. "We need to talk, but not now. After dinner." "You can't expect me to just—" "After dinner," she repeated firmly. "The courtyard behind the dining hall. 10 o'clock. Before Daniel could argue, she hurried after Michael, leaving Daniel standing alone with the weight of this revelation crushing his chest. The dinner that followed was torture for Daniel. He sat at the high table with the faculty, picking at his food while his eyes kept drifting to Elena and Michael. Seated at a round table with Mrs. Carter and some others he didn't recognize, they looked happy together. Michael laughed at something Elena said, his smile transforming his serious face. Elena touched his arm with obvious pride. They were a family Daniel had no part in. During the dessert course, Mrs. Carter got up and walked to the bar. As she passed Daniel's table, she paused. "Stay away from them," she said quietly, her voice cold. "You've done enough damage." Daniel looked up at the older woman. Her hair had gone grey, but her eyes were just as sharp as he remembered. She had never liked him, always saying he wasn't good enough for her daughter. "Mrs. Carter," he began. "No," she cut him off. "My daughter and grandson are happy. They don't need you coming in and stirring up trouble after all these years." "He's my son," Daniel said, his voice low but firm. Mrs. Carter's eyes narrowed. "Biology doesn't make you a father. 22 years of absence says you're nothing to him." With that, she walked away, leaving Daniel feeling both angry and ashamed. He watched the Carter family for the rest of the evening, his mind racing with questions. Why hadn't Elena told him about the pregnancy? What had she told Michael about his father? Why had she kept them apart for so long? By the time 10 o'clock approached, Daniel's initial shock had hardened into determination. He would not walk away. Not this time. The courtyard was quiet, lit only by small lamps along the pathways. Daniel paced back and forth, checking his watch every few minutes. At 10 past 10, he heard footsteps and turned to see Elena walking toward him. She had changed into jeans and a simple blouse, looking more like the Elena he remembered from college. His heart did a familiar flip in his chest before he reminded himself why they were here. "You're late," he said. "I had to make sure Michael was settled," she replied. "He's still celebrating with friends." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, two people who had once known each other intimately, now strangers. "Why?" Daniel finally asked. "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena sighed and sat on a stone bench. "It's a long story. I've got time," he said, sitting beside her but keeping his distance. She looked at her hands. "I found out I was pregnant 2 months after we broke up. After you told me your parents didn't approve of us, of me, and that you needed to focus on your future." Daniel winced at the memory. "I was young and stupid, but I had a right to know." "Did you?" Elena's voice hardened. "You made it pretty clear that your career and your family's approval meant more than our relationship. More than me. That's not fair, isn't it? She looked at him directly now. You chose to end things because your fancy family didn't want you dating a black girl from the wrong side of town. How would they have reacted to a mixed-race grandchild? Daniel had no answer for that. His parents had indeed pressured him about Eleanor, suggesting she wasn't suitable for their son, and he had given in, convinced by their arguments about focusing on his career first. It was his biggest regret. I tried to call you once, Eleanor continued. About 3 months after, your mother answered and said you were in New York for an internship and very happy with your new girlfriend. She told me not to call again. I never knew, Daniel said quietly. About the call or the baby? I swear, Elena nodded. I believe you. But by then I'd already decided to do it on my own. My mom helped me. I finished school, got my degree, built a career, and raised Michael. You did an amazing job, Daniel admitted. He seems incredible. A small smile touched Elena's lips. He is. Top of his class. Compassionate. Strong-willed. Like his mother, Daniel said softly. Their eyes met briefly before Elena looked away. I should have told you. Maybe not then, but later when things were more stable. But the longer I waited, the harder it got. What does he think happened to his father? I told him his father was a college boyfriend who wasn't ready for a family. That was true, wasn't it? The words stung, but Daniel couldn't deny them. Maybe back then. But you should have given me the chance to step up. To be in his life. Maybe, Elena conceded. But I was protecting him. And myself. From what? From getting hurt, she said simply. From loving someone who would walk away when things got hard. Like you did with me. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. That's not fair. We were kids, Elena. I made a mistake. But I've changed. And I deserve to know my son. And now you do, she said. But don't expect to just walk into his life and have him welcome you with open arms. He's had 22 years to wonder why his father never wanted to know him. The reality of that hit Daniel hard. Then give me the chance now, he said. Let me get to know him. Let me be part of his life, Elena stood up. That's not just my decision anymore. Michael is an adult. He'll decide if he wants you in his life. She started to walk away, then paused. We're staying at the Randolph Hotel. Michael's having breakfast with me at 8 tomorrow. If you want to join us, that's up to you. Daniel watched her go, his mind spinning with emotions, anger at being kept in the dark, regret for his past choices, and beneath it all, a desperate longing to know the son he never knew he had. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the Randolph Hotel at exactly 8 o'clock. He found Elena sitting alone at a table in the restaurant, looking elegant in a cream sweater that contrasted beautifully with her dark skin. Where's Michael? He asked, sitting down across from her. Running late. He just texted. She pushed a cup of coffee toward him. Black, 2 sugars. You still take it that way? Daniel was surprised she remembered. Yes, thanks. They sat in uncomfortable silence until Michael appeared, dressed in jeans and a navy sweater. He stopped short when he saw Daniel. What's he doing here? Michael asked Elena, not bothering to lower his voice. I invited him, Elena replied calmly. Please sit down, Michael. Michael hesitated, then sat beside his mother, as far from Daniel as possible. I don't understand what's going on. Elena took a deep breath. Michael, there's something I need to tell you about Daniel. He's your father. The color drained from Michael's face. He looked from Elena to Daniel and back again. What? No, you said my father was some guy who wasn't ready for a family, who didn't want to know me. I thought that was true, Elena said softly. But it's more complicated. Daniel didn't know about you until yesterday. Michael's eyes narrowed as he looked at Daniel. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No, Daniel said honestly. But it's the truth. I just found out I have a son. A brilliant, successful son who graduated from Oxford Medical School yesterday. And I want to get to know you if you'll let me. This is crazy, Michael stood up abruptly. 22 years of nothing and now you want to play dad? Where were you when I had chickenpox? Or when I broke my arm in 6th grade? Or when I got into Oxford and had no father to call and tell? Michael. Elena reached for his hand, but he pulled away. No, Mom, you kept this from me my whole life. You let me think he didn't want me. And now what? We're supposed to be one big, happy family? I made mistakes, Elena admitted, tears in her eyes. I thought I was protecting you. From what? Michael demanded. From knowing the truth? From having a father. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. I need some air. Michael, please, Elena stood. Let me, Daniel said quietly. Please. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Daniel hurried after Michael, who was already striding through the hotel lobby. Michael, wait, he called. To his surprise, Michael stopped and turned. What? Can I walk with you? Just for a bit. Michael stared at him for a long moment, then nodded curtly. Fine. They left the hotel and walked in silence toward the university. The morning was cool but sunny, the streets beginning to fill with tourists and students. I'm not expecting you to welcome me with open arms, Daniel finally said. I just want a chance to explain. Explain what? Michael's voice was bitter. Why you weren't there for 22 years. I didn't know you existed, Daniel replied honestly. If I had, things would have been different, Michael scoffed. Easy to say now. It's the truth. Your mother and I broke up before she knew she was pregnant. She tried to contact me once, but my mother intercepted the call and never told me. Convenient excuse. Not an excuse, just what happened, Daniel sighed. Look, I made mistakes. I was young and let my parents influence me too much. I broke up with your mother partly because they didn't approve of her. Because she's black? Michael's directness was startling. Daniel nodded, ashamed. Yes, among other things. They thought she wasn't from the right background, and I was too weak to stand up to them. It's the biggest regret of my life. They walked in silence for a while, passing through a small park. So what now? Michael finally asked. You find out you have a son and suddenly want to play happy families. I want to get to know you, Daniel said simply. I've missed 22 years of your life. I don't want to miss any more. Michael stopped walking and turned to face him. You can't buy your way into my life, you know. I don't care how rich you are or what fancy car you drive. I've done just fine without a father all these years. I know, Daniel said. And I'm not trying to buy anything. I just want a chance to be your father, even if it's 22 years too late. Michael studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Daniel standing alone in the park, wondering if he'd just lost his son for a second time. Daniel stood in the park long after Michael had walked away. The weight of 22 lost years pressed down on his shoulders. He had a son, a brilliant, accomplished son who wanted nothing to do with him. And he couldn't even blame the young man. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Elena. Where are you? Is Michael with you? Daniel sighed and typed back. He left. Headed toward campus. I think he needs space. 3 dots appeared as Elena typed her response, then, come back to the hotel. We need to talk. When Daniel returned to the Randolph, he found Elena pacing in the lobby. Her face was tight with worry. What did you say to him? She demanded as soon as she saw him. I told him the truth, Daniel replied, that I didn't know about him, and that I want to get to know him now. I told you not to push too hard. Elena's voice rose, drawing curious glances from hotel staff. She noticed and lowered her voice. He's just finding out his whole life story is different than he thought. He needs time, and I've already lost 22 years, Daniel shot back. How much more time should I give up? Elena's eyes flashed with anger. This isn't about you, Daniel. It's about Michael. He's the one whose world just got turned upside down. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I know, I'm sorry. I want to make things right. You can't fix 22 years of absence overnight, Elena said, her voice softening slightly. Michael needs to process this in his own way, at his own pace. Daniel nodded, knowing she was right. What do we do now? We give him space. Let him come to terms with it. Elena checked her watch. He has lunch plans with some friends. That will give him time to cool down. Maybe we can all talk again later. Before Daniel could respond, a sharp voice called from across the lobby. Daniel, what on earth is going on? They both turned to see a tall, elegant woman with dark hair like Daniel's striding toward them. Her expensive clothes and confident walk screamed money and privilege. Anna, Daniel said, surprised. What are you doing here? Anna Whitmore, Daniel's younger sister, stopped in front of them, her eyes moving from her brother to Elena with obvious curiosity. You left 3 messages saying it was urgent, then didn't answer when I called back, she said. So I hopped on the train from London. Her gaze settled on Elena. And who is this? Daniel hesitated, then said, Anna, this is Elena Carter. Elena, this is my sister, Anna. Recognition flashed in Anna's eyes. Eleanor, Your college girlfriend? She looked Elena up and down, making no effort to hide her assessment. The one who disappeared? Elena lifted her chin slightly. I didn't disappear. I moved on with my life after your brother ended our relationship. Anna raised an eyebrow. And yet here you are all these years later. What's going on, Daniel? Daniel took a deep breath. Let's sit down. I have something to tell you. 10 minutes later, Anna sat in stunned silence in the hotel's quiet corner lounge. She had listened without interrupting, as Daniel explained about seeing Elena at the graduation, recognizing Michael, and learning he had a son. A son, she finally said, shaking her head in disbelief. You have a 22-year-old son you never knew about. She turned to Elena, her eyes hard. How could you keep this from him? From our entire family? That boy is a Whitmore. His name is Michael Carter, Elena said firmly. And I did what I thought was best at the time. Best for who? Anna demanded. Not for my brother, who missed his son's entire childhood. Not for my parents, who never got to know their grandson. And certainly not for Michael, who grew up without a father. Anna, Daniel warned, this isn't helping. No, let her speak, Elena said, her voice steady. I've wondered for years what your family would say if they ever found out. Now I know. She looked directly at Anna. I was 21, pregnant and alone. Your brother had made it clear our relationship was over, because his family, your family, didn't approve of me. Your mother intercepted my call when I tried to reach him. What would you have done in my shoes? Anna had the grace to look uncomfortable. I don't know. But keeping a child from his father is wrong, no matter what the circumstances. Maybe, Elena conceded, but protecting my child from rejection was my priority, and I've done that for 22 years. Michael has grown up loved and supported. He's never wanted for anything important. Except a father, Anna said quietly. An uncomfortable silence fell over the group. Daniel looked between the two women, seeing the tension crackling between them. Anna had always been fiercely protective of him, even though she was younger. What matters now, he finally said, is how we move forward. Michael knows the truth and he's angry. At both of us, he added, looking at Elena. We need to give him space to process this, but I'm not walking away. Not this time, Elena nodded. I agree. He deserves to know his father if that's what he wants. If, Anna asked sharply. It has to be his choice, Elena replied. He's an adult. We can't force a relationship. Daniel's phone buzzed with a text. He checked it and looked up, surprised. It's from Michael. He wants to have dinner. Just me and him. Elena's eyes widened. Really? Daniel nodded, showing her the message. Fine, dinner tonight, just you. 7 p.m. at the Eagle and Child. If you still want to talk. You should go, Elena said after a moment. This is good. He's reaching out. Are you sure? Daniel asked. I don't want to step on your toes. Michael needs this, she replied. You both do. Anna watched this exchange with narrowed eyes. And what exactly are your intentions here, Elena? After all these years, what do you want from my brother? Elena met her gaze steadily. Nothing. I want what's best for my son. That's all I've ever wanted. And if that includes Daniel in his life? In yours. Then we'll figure it out, Elena replied simply. One step at a time. Anna didn't look convinced, but Daniel cut in before she could respond. Anna, I appreciate you coming, but I need to handle this my way. Why don't you check into the hotel? We can talk more later. After Anna reluctantly left to check in, Daniel turned to Elena. I'm sorry about my sister. She's protective. I remember, Elena said with a small smile. Some things don't change. She touched his arm lightly. Be patient with Michael tonight. Let him lead the conversation. Daniel nodded, trying to ignore the warmth that spread from where her fingers had touched his skin. I will. The Eagle and Child pub was busy that evening, filled with students celebrating the end of term, and tourists soaking in the literary history of the place where J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis once gathered. Daniel arrived early and secured a quiet corner table, his stomach knotted with nerves. He spotted Michael the moment he walked in. His son moved with confidence, nodding to people he knew as he made his way through the crowd. Several people called out congratulations on his graduation. Daniel felt a surge of pride, quickly followed by sadness for all the moments he had missed. Michael sat down across from him, his face carefully neutral. "I ordered a drink at the bar," he said by way of greeting. "Thank you for meeting me," Daniel said. "I wasn't sure you would," Mom insisted, Michael replied. "She said I should at least hear you out." A server arrived with Michael's beer and took their food orders. When she left, an awkward silence fell between them. "So," Daniel finally said, "how does it feel to be a doctor?" "I'm not a doctor yet," Michael corrected him. "Still have my residency to complete." 2 years minimum. Where will you do that?" "London, St. Mary's Hospital. I start next month." Daniel nodded. "That's a great hospital. You must have been at the top of your class to get a spot there." "I was," Michael said, no false modesty in his voice. "Just a statement of fact." Another silence fell. Daniel took a sip of his water, searching for the right words. "Look, Michael, I know this is weird. Believe me, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it myself. But I want you to know if I had known about you, things would have been different." Michael studied him for a moment. "Would they?" "Mom said you broke up with her because your family didn't approve. Because she was black and from a working-class family." Daniel winced but nodded. "That was part of it, yes. My parents, they had certain expectations, and I was too weak to stand up to them." He met Michael's eyes directly. "It's the biggest mistake I ever made." "Easy to say now," Michael replied. "But true," Daniel insisted. "I've had other relationships since then, but none that felt right." "Maybe because I never got over your mother." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying you still have feelings for her?" "After 23 years, Daniel hesitated. "I'm saying she was special, and seeing her again. Yes, there's still something there. At least for me." Before Michael could respond, a loud crash made them both jump. A waiter had dropped a tray of glasses. As the staff rushed to clean up the mess, both Daniel and Michael chuckled at their identical startled reactions. "You have my laugh," Daniel said softly. Michael's smile faded, but not completely. "Mom always said I got my laugh from her side of the family." "She had to tell you something," Daniel said gently. Their food arrived, and they ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Michael asked, "So what do you do?" "Mom never really told me much about you." "I run a tech company," Daniel replied. "We develop software for healthcare systems, actually. Started it right after college." "Successful?" Daniel nodded. "Very. Though there were some tough years at the beginning." "Is that why you never looked for her? Too busy becoming rich?" The question hit Daniel like a punch. "No. I didn't look because I thought she was better off without me. And by the time I realized what a mistake I'd made, she'd disappeared. Changed her name when she married, I guess." "She never married," Michael said quietly. "It's always been just the two of us, plus Grandma." Daniel absorbed this information, feeling a mix of sadness and something else he couldn't quite name. "She's an amazing woman, your mother. Strong, smart. She did a fantastic job raising you." "She is amazing," Michael agreed, a hint of pride in his voice. "She worked 2 jobs to put herself through grad school while raising me. Never complained. Always made time for my school events. She's the reason I wanted to become a doctor. To help people the way she always has." Daniel smiled. "What does she do now?" "She's a clinical psychologist. Works with kids mainly." "That suits her," Daniel said. "She always understood people. Saw right through them. Including me." They fell into an easier conversation after that, with Michael asking questions about Daniel's life, and Daniel soaking up every detail Michael shared about his childhood. The initial tension slowly melted away, though Michael still maintained a careful distance. When dinner was over, they stood outside the pub in the cool evening air. "Thank you for this," Daniel said. "I know it wasn't easy," Michael nodded. "I'm still processing everything, but it was good to talk. Could we do it again?" "Maybe tomorrow?" Daniel asked, trying not to sound too eager. Michael hesitated. "I have plans with friends tomorrow. But maybe lunch the day after? Mom mentioned you're staying through the weekend." "I am now," Daniel confirmed. "Lunch sounds great." As Michael turned to leave, Daniel fought the urge to hug him. It was too soon, he knew. But it was a start. The next morning, Daniel was having coffee in the hotel restaurant when Mrs. Carter appeared at his table. "May I join you?" she asked, her voice formal. Daniel stood. "Of course, Mrs. Carter, please." She sat across from him, her back straight, her eyes sharp despite her years. "I'll come right to the point, Mr. Whitmore. What exactly are your intentions here?" Daniel set down his cup. "My intentions are to get to know my son, and to be part of his life going forward if he'll let me." And Elena. What are your intentions toward her? The question caught him off guard. We haven't really talked about that. Mrs. Carter's eyes narrowed. Let me be clear. My daughter and grandson have built a good life without you. They've struggled, yes, but they've overcome those struggles together. They don't need you swooping in now that the hard work is done. I'm not swooping in, Daniel said, keeping his voice even. I just found out about Michael 2 days ago. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing, Mrs. Carter repeated. And what happens when doing the right thing gets difficult? When it requires real sacrifice? Will you walk away again like you did from Elena? The accusation stung, but Daniel knew he deserved it. No, I've grown up a lot since then. Made a lot of mistakes, learned from them. I won't abandon them this time. I want to be part of their lives, however they'll let me. Mrs. Carter studied him for a long moment. Elena loved you, you know, more than she's ever loved anyone else. It nearly broke her when you ended things. I loved her too, Daniel said quietly. I was just too young and stupid to realize what I was giving up. A hint of softening appeared in Mrs. Carter's stern expression. My daughter is the most precious thing in the world to me, as is my grandson. If you hurt either of them again, I won't, Daniel promised. I just want a chance to be in their lives. Mrs. Carter nodded, seemingly satisfied for the moment. Michael told me about your dinner. He said it went acceptably. Daniel smiled. High praise from a son meeting his father for the first time. Indeed. Mrs. Carter stood. Tread carefully, Mr. Whitmore. Trust once broken is not easily rebuilt. As she walked away, Daniel reflected on her words. She was right. He had a long way to go to earn back the trust he had shattered all those years ago. That afternoon, Daniel was walking along the Thames when he spotted Elena sitting alone on a bench, watching the water. She wore a simple sundress, her legs crossed at the ankle, looking thoughtful and beautiful. His heart jumped at the sight of her. Mind if I join you? He asked, approaching slowly. Elena looked up, surprised, then nodded. How did you find me? I didn't, Daniel replied, sitting beside her. Just lucky, I guess. He gestured to the river. You always liked being near water. Said it helped you think. You remember that? She asked, sounding surprised. I remember a lot of things, he said softly. The way you take your coffee, how you scrunch your nose when you're thinking hard. The sound of your laugh. Elena looked away, a faint blush on her cheeks. Daniel, sorry, he said quickly. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. It's just, seeing you again brings it all back. They sat in silence for a moment, watching a group of students attempting to row a boat with more enthusiasm than skill. Michael told me about your dinner, Elena finally said. He said it went okay. It did, Daniel agreed. He's an amazing young man, Elena. You did an incredible job raising him. Thank you, she said. It wasn't always easy, but we managed. I'm sorry you had to do it alone, Daniel said quietly. If I had known... I know, Elena cut him off. But we can't change the past. No, but we can shape the future. Daniel turned slightly to face her. Elena, I want to be part of Michael's life, and, if I'm being honest, I'd like to see if there's still something between us too. Elena's eyes widened. Daniel, it's been 23 years. We're not the same people we were back then. Maybe not, he agreed. But when I saw you at the graduation, my heart still skipped a beat. Just like it did the first time I saw you in that English literature class. A small smile touched her lips. You were so confident back then. Cocky even. Sitting in the front row, always raising your hand. Only because you sat in the front row, he admitted. I switched seats to be near you. You never told me that, she said, surprised. Too embarrassed, Daniel confessed. Didn't want you to know how instantly smitten I was. Eleanor laughed softly, the sound bringing back a flood of memories. We were so young. We still have time, Daniel said. If you wanted to see where things might go. Elena's smile faded. Daniel, I can't just jump back into something with you. Too much has happened. I have Michael to think about. Of course, he said quickly. I'm not suggesting we pick up where we left off, just maybe we could spend some time together while I'm here. Get to know each other again. Eleanor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'd like that. But slowly, okay? One step at a time. One step at a time, Daniel agreed, feeling a surge of hope in his chest. They sat together by the river, talking about the years that had passed. Eleanor told him about her struggles as a single mother, working her way through graduate school while raising Michael. Daniel shared stories of building his company, the failures and successes along the way. As the afternoon wore on, the distance between them seemed to shrink, the years falling away. When Elena leaned toward him slightly, Daniel felt his breath catch. For a moment he thought she might kiss him, but then she pulled back, a conflicted look in her eyes. "I should go," she said, standing abruptly. "Michael and I have dinner plans with some of his friends." Daniel stood too, trying to hide his disappointment. "Of course. Would you like to join us?" The invitation seemed to surprise Elena as much as it did Daniel. "Are you sure?" he asked. "I don't want to intrude. Michael actually suggested it," she admitted, "when I told him I was meeting you today." Hope bloomed in Daniel's chest. "Then I'd love to." As they walked back toward town, their hands brushed accidentally. Neither of them pulled away. Later that night, Michael met a friend at a pub near the hotel. The celebration dinner with his mother and Daniel had gone surprisingly well. His friends had been curious about the sudden appearance of his father, but Michael had simply said it was a long story. "So let me get this straight," his friend Tom said after Michael explained the situation. "Your dad shows up out of nowhere at graduation. Didn't even know you existed, and now he wants to be part of your life." "Pretty much," Michael confirmed, taking a sip of his beer. "And how do you feel about that?" Michael stared into his glass, considering. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me is still angry. 22 years of nothing, and now he wants to play dad. But another part is curious," Tom finished for him. "Wants to know who he is, where you came from." "Yeah," Michael admitted. "I always wondered about him. Mom didn't talk about him much, just said he wasn't ready for a family. Now I find out he didn't even know I existed." He shook his head. "It's a lot to process." "Seems like a decent guy, though," Tom observed. "From dinner, I mean. He seems to be," Michael agreed. "But it's only been 2 days. He's still on his best behavior." "True, but maybe give him a chance. See if he's sincere." Michael nodded slowly. "That's what Mom said. She thinks I should get to know him, decide for myself." "Smart woman, your mom," Tom said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings." Michael clinked his glass against Tom's. "To finding out who Daniel Whitmore really is." The next day, Elena organized an impromptu celebration dinner at a nice restaurant near the university. Michael had invited several friends, and Daniel had asked Anna to join them. Even Mrs. Carter agreed to come, though she kept a watchful eye on Daniel throughout the evening. The atmosphere was surprisingly relaxed. Anna, after some initial stiffness, was making an effort to be friendly to Elena. Michael was laughing with his friends, occasionally including Daniel in the conversation. And Elena, sitting beside Daniel, seemed more comfortable than she had since their reunion. "Thank you for organizing this," Daniel said quietly to her, as dessert was being served. "It means a lot to be included," Elena smiled. "It was Michael's idea, actually. He said if you're going to be in his life, you should meet his friends. See his world." Daniel felt a surge of happiness. "Does that mean he's decided?" "About letting me be in his life." "I think he's leaning that way," Elena replied. "But give him time. It's still new for all of us." Daniel nodded, then raised his glass. "May I make a toast?" When everyone turned to him, he continued, "To Michael, the most brilliant new doctor I know, and to new beginnings for all of us." Everyone raised their glasses. "To new beginnings, Matisse," they echoed. As Daniel looked around the table, at his son, at Elena, at their extended circle of family and friends, he felt for the first time in years like he was part of something real and important. Like he belonged. After dinner, as people were saying their goodbyes, Daniel stepped outside to take a phone call from a colleague. As he finished, he noticed another businessman he'd met at the graduation, Whitmore. "Good to see you," the man said, shaking his hand. "Heard you found yourself in quite the situation here at Oxford." Daniel tensed. "What do you mean?" The man winked. "Oh, word gets around. Suddenly discovered son. Quite the shock, I'd imagine." "It was," Daniel admitted stiffly. "Well, nothing a man like you can't handle, eh? Make things right with money, as they say. Set the boy up, smooth things over. You have plenty to spread around." Daniel chuckled uncomfortably. "It's not really about money." Of course," the man interrupted with another wink. "But doesn't hurt to have it when making amends, does it? Anyway, good luck sorting it all out. Give me a call if you're ever in London. We should talk business." As the man walked away, Daniel turned to see Michael standing in the doorway of the restaurant, his face dark with anger. From his expression, It was clear he'd heard at least part of the conversation. "Michael," Daniel began, "that wasn't—" "Save it," Michael cut him off. "I get it now. This is all about clearing your conscience, isn't it? Throwing money at the problem, making things right with cash so you can sleep better at night." "No," Daniel protested. "That's not what this is about at all." But Michael was already walking back inside. Daniel followed, finding Elena and pulling her aside. "We have a problem," he said quietly, explaining what had happened. Elena's face fell. "Oh, Daniel, after all the progress we've made—" "It was a misunderstanding," Daniel insisted. "I wasn't talking about buying Michael's affection. That guy brought it up, not me." "But that's how it sounded to Michael," Elena pointed out. "And given his concerns about your motives to begin with—" They both looked over to where Michael was speaking angrily to Tom, gesturing toward Daniel. After a moment, Michael approached them. "I'm leaving," he said to Elena. "Going back to the hotel." "Michael, please," Daniel started. "What you heard was exactly what I expected all along," Michael finished for him. "You think you can buy your way into my life? Make up for 22 years with your money and connections." "That's not true," Daniel protested. "You're my son." "This isn't about money." Michael's eyes flashed with anger. "I'm not your son. Biology doesn't make you a father. And I was an idiot to think this could work." With that, he stormed out of the restaurant. Eleanor gave Daniel an apologetic look and hurried after him, leaving Daniel standing alone. The evening's joy shattered by a simple misunderstanding. Back at the hotel, Daniel found Elena waiting for him in the lobby, her face tight with worry. "How is he?" Daniel asked immediately. "Angry," Elena replied. "Hurt. He's packing to leave Oxford tomorrow instead of staying the weekend as planned." "Because of me," Daniel said. The realization painful. "Because he's confused and hurt," Elena corrected him. "He's had a lifetime to wonder about you, to build up ideas of who you might be. And now that you're here in the flesh, it's overwhelming." The misunderstanding tonight just gave him an excuse to pull back. "I have to talk to him," Daniel insisted. "Make him understand that guy was wrong." "This isn't about money." "Not tonight," Elena said firmly. "He needs space. Maybe in the morning before he leaves." Daniel nodded, defeated. "I'm sorry, Elena, for everything. For the past and for ruining tonight." Elena sighed. "You didn't ruin anything, Daniel. This was always going to be complicated." She touched his arm gently. "Get some rest. We'll figure it out tomorrow." As she walked toward the elevator, Daniel called after her. "Elena, do you believe me? That this isn't about money or clearing my conscience?" She turned back, her expression soft. "I know you better than that, Daniel. Even after all these years." With that small comfort, Daniel watched her go, wondering if he'd just destroyed his second chance at a family before it had really begun. Daniel hardly slept that night. He tossed and turned in his hotel bed, replaying the evening's disaster in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Michael's face, hurt, angry, disappointed. The same expression Elena had worn 23 years ago when he'd broken her heart. Morning light filtered through the curtains when Daniel finally gave up on sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands. His phone showed no messages from either Elena or Michael. "I've messed up again," he muttered to himself. He showered and dressed, then sat in the chair by the window, staring at the historic buildings of Oxford. Wealth had come easily to him over the years. He'd worked hard, sure, but success had followed quickly. Money had become his way of solving problems. Need something fixed? Throw money at it. Want something? Buy it. But money couldn't buy what mattered most. It couldn't buy a son's love or trust. It couldn't buy back 22 lost years. A knock at the door startled him. He rushed to open it, hoping to see Michael, but found Anna instead. "You look terrible," she said, walking past him into the room. "Thanks," Daniel replied dryly. "What are you doing here so early?" Anna sat in the chair he'd just vacated. "Elena called me. Told me what happened last night." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Elena called you?" "Surprised me too," Anna admitted. "But she thought I might be able to help." She studied her brother's face. "She cares about you, you know, still, after all these years." Daniel sighed and sat on the bed. "I've messed everything up, Anna. Michael thinks I'm just trying to buy his forgiveness, that this is all about money. And it's not?" "Of course not," Daniel snapped. "He's my son, my flesh and blood. I want to know him, to be part of his life." Anna nodded. "Then you need to show him that, not just tell him." "How?" "He won't even talk to me now." Anna checked her watch. Eleanor says he's checking out at 11. Planning to take the noon train to London. She stood up. So you have exactly 3 hours to figure out how to prove to your son that he matters more to you than your money or your pride. After Anna left, Daniel paced the room, thinking hard. How could he show Michael that this wasn't about money, that he truly wanted to be a father? The answer came to him suddenly. It was risky, maybe even foolish, but it was the only way he could think of to prove his sincerity. He picked up his phone and made a call. At 11 o'clock, Michael wheeled his suitcase through the hotel lobby. His face was set in a determined expression, but his eyes looked tired and sad. You don't have to leave today, Elena said, walking beside him. The room is paid through the weekend. I know, Michael replied, but I need to get back to London. Start setting up my apartment before residency begins. Elena touched his arm. He really does care about you, Michael. Last night was a misunderstanding. Michael stopped walking. Mom, I know you want this to work out. Some part of me does too, but I need time to process everything. He hugged her quickly. I'll call you when I get to London, okay? Before Elena could respond, the hotel doors opened and Anna rushed in. Thank goodness you're still here, she said, slightly out of breath. You need to come with me. Both of you. What's going on? Elena asked. It's Daniel, Anna replied. He's about to do something either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Maybe both, Michael frowned. What are you talking about? There's no time to explain, Anna insisted. Just come, please. Elena looked at Michael questioningly. After a moment, he nodded reluctantly. Fine, but after this I'm going to London. They followed Anna outside to a waiting taxi. 20 minutes later, they arrived at a small park near the university where a crowd had gathered. In the center stood Daniel, looking nervous but determined. What is this? Michael asked. Just listen, Anna replied, leading them closer. Daniel spotted them but didn't acknowledge them. Instead, he raised his voice to address the assembled group of students, tourists, and locals. Thank you all for coming, he began. Most of you don't know me. My name is Daniel Whitmore. 3 days ago, I came to Oxford to give a speech about success and business. Instead, I discovered something much more important. I found out I have a son. A murmur ran through the crowd. Elena gasped softly. Michael stared, his expression unreadable. 23 years ago, Daniel continued, I made the worst mistake of my life. I let my parents' disapproval and my own ambition convince me to end a relationship with the most amazing woman I've ever known. What I didn't know was that she was pregnant with my child. He paused, swallowing hard. I just learned 3 days ago that I have a son, a brilliant young man who just graduated from Oxford Medical School. A son who grew up without me, who never had a father to teach him to ride a bike or help with homework, or just be there when he needed someone. And that's my loss. The greatest loss of my life. Daniel's voice wavered slightly, but he pressed on. My son thinks I want to buy my way into his life, that my money means more to me than he does, so I'm here to prove him wrong. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a check. He held it up for everyone to see. This is a check for £1 million. It represents a good chunk of my personal wealth. And I'm going to tear it up right now, because I want my son to know that no amount of money could ever mean as much to me as the chance to be his father. With that, Daniel tore the check in half, then into quarters, letting the pieces scatter in the wind. Money can't buy back the years I missed, he said, his voice now thick with emotion. It can't make up for the birthdays and school plays and scraped knees. Nothing can. But if my son will give me the chance, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the father he deserves. Not with my wallet, but with my heart. The crowd had fallen completely silent. Elena had tears streaming down her face. Anna watched her brother with a mix of pride and concern. And Michael stood frozen, his eyes locked on Daniel. Thank you for listening, Daniel finished simply. Then he stepped back, clearly emotionally drained. The crowd broke into spontaneous applause, but Daniel didn't seem to notice. He was looking at Michael, waiting. Slowly, Michael walked forward until he stood directly in front of his father. The crowd quieted, sensing the importance of the moment. You didn't need to do that, Michael said, his voice tight with emotion. It was a stupid thing to do. Maybe, Daniel agreed. But I needed you to know that this isn't about money. It never was. Michael shook his head, but there was a hint of softening in his eyes. That check was real, wasn't it? Daniel nodded. Every penny. You're an idiot, Michael said, but there was no anger in his voice now. Just confusion and a touch of wonder. Probably, Daniel admitted. But I'm an idiot who wants to be your father. If you'll let me. Michael didn't respond immediately. He seemed to be fighting an internal battle, his face a mix of conflicting emotions. The anger was still there, but it was weakening, crumbling under the weight of something stronger. Longing. I've spent my whole life wondering about you, Michael finally said, his voice barely audible. Making up stories about why you weren't around. Telling myself I didn't care, that I didn't need you. His voice broke. But I did. I needed a father. Daniel took a tentative step forward. I'm here now, he said softly. I know it's 22 years too late, but I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Something in Michael seemed to break then. The walls he'd built up over a lifetime came crashing down. His shoulders shook as years of suppressed emotion finally found release. I was so angry, he choked out. So angry at you for not being there. I know, Daniel whispered. And you have every right to be. Almost without realizing it, Daniel reached out. For one terrible moment he thought Michael would step away. Instead, his son moved into the embrace, allowing himself to be held for the first time by his father. Daniel wrapped his arms tightly around Michael, feeling his son's tears soaking into his shoulder. His own eyes blurred with tears. I'm so sorry, Daniel murmured. So sorry for not being there. But I'm so proud of you. So proud of the man you've become. The crowd around them had respectfully moved back, giving them space. Eleanor watched from a short distance away, tears streaming down her face. Anna stood beside her, a comforting hand on her shoulder. After what seemed like a long time, Michael pulled back, wiping roughly at his eyes. This doesn't fix everything, he said, his voice steadier. We have a lot to figure out. I know, Daniel agreed. One day at a time, Michael nodded. I still need to go to London today. Got stuff to sort out before residency. Of course, Daniel said, trying not to show his disappointment. But, Michael added, maybe you could come visit next weekend? See my new apartment? Hope bloomed in Daniel's chest. I'd like that very much. Michael gave a small, cautious smile, the first genuine smile he'd directed at Daniel. Good, it's settled then. As Michael turned to walk back to his mother, Daniel felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. A beginning. Elena approached him, her eyes still shimmering with tears. That was quite a show, she said quietly. Not a show, Daniel replied. I meant every word, she nodded. I know. That's why it worked. She glanced at Michael, who was now talking with Anna. He needs time, but you've broken through. The first step is always the hardest. Daniel looked at her, this woman he'd never truly forgotten. Eleanor, he began, not quite sure what he wanted to say. She shook her head. Not now. Michael first. We'll figure out us later. Daniel nodded, understanding. Would you like to have dinner tonight? After Michael leaves? Just to talk? Eleanor hesitated, then said, Yes, I think I'd like that. Later that afternoon, Daniel stood on the platform with Eleanor as they waved goodbye to Michael's train. The young man had been quiet but not hostile, as they'd helped him gather his things and dropped him at the station. As the train disappeared from view, Eleanor turned to Daniel. What now? Dinner as planned? He suggested. Elena nodded. I meant after that. You're going back to London tomorrow too, aren't you? Daniel hadn't thought that far ahead. His life in London, his company, his penthouse apartment, seemed distant and unimportant compared to what he'd discovered here in Oxford. I don't have to, he said slowly. I can work remotely for a while. Stay here longer if you'd like. Elena studied him. And what would that accomplish? It would give us time, Daniel replied, to figure things out. Between us, I mean. A small smile touched her lips. Are you saying there's something to figure out? Daniel took a deep breath. I think there could be. If you wanted to explore that possibility. Elena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned and began walking slowly away from the station. Daniel fell into step beside her. You hurt me very badly, Daniel, she finally said. When you ended things all those years ago, I was devastated. I know, he replied softly. It's the biggest regret of my life. And yet, she continued, seeing you with Michael today, the way you put yourself out there risked embarrassment all to reach him. She shook her head wonderingly. You've changed. I've grown up, Daniel said. Learned what matters. What's worth fighting for? They walked in silence for a while, their arms occasionally brushing. The contact, though small, sent tingles up Daniel's spine. "I still fear trusting you," Elena admitted. "My heart remembers the pain too well." Daniel stopped walking and turned to face her. "I understand that, and I don't expect you to forget the past. But maybe we could try to build something new, something better?" Elena looked at him, her dark eyes searching his face. Then slowly she reached out and took his hand in hers. Her touch was warm, familiar yet new. "One step at a time," she said quietly. Daniel squeezed her hand gently, feeling a surge of hope in his chest. "One step at a time," he agreed. That evening they had dinner at a small intimate restaurant away from the university. The atmosphere was relaxed, the conversation flowing more easily than either had expected. They shared stories of the years apart, Daniel's business successes and failures, Elena's struggles and triumphs raising Michael and building her career. "He really is amazing," Daniel said as they lingered over dessert. "You did such an incredible job with him, Elena. I don't know if I've properly told you that." Elena smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. "He made it easy. Always so bright, so determined. Even as a little boy he knew what he wanted. Like his mother," Daniel observed. "And his father," Elena added, surprising them both. After a moment she continued. "You always knew what you wanted too, Daniel. Even back in college." "Not always," he countered. "I made the biggest mistake of my life letting you go." Elena sighed. "We were so young. Different worlds, different expectations. Maybe it was inevitable." "I don't believe that," Daniel said firmly. "I should have fought harder. For you, for us." "Would it have made a difference?" Elena asked. "Your parents were so against us." Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "It might have. But what matters now is that I'm not that weak young man anymore. If I'm lucky enough to get a second chance with you, I won't let anything come between us." Elena didn't pull her hand away. Instead, she turned it to intertwine her fingers with his. "You're very confident, Mr. Whitmore," she teased lightly. "Only when it matters most," he replied, his eyes never leaving hers. The walk back to the hotel was filled with a sweet tension, their hands occasionally brushing but never quite holding. At Elena's door they paused. "Thank you for dinner," she said softly. "Thank you for giving me a chance," Daniel replied. To explain, to apologize, to start again. Elena looked up at him, her expression serious but tender. "Daniel, what happens when you go back to London? To your life there? Will this all seem like a dream? Some emotional vacation fling?" Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, this is real, Elena. The most real thing in my life." He took a deep breath. "Look, I know it's fast, but what if I moved to London? Not to crowd you or Michael, but to be closer. To show you both that I'm serious about being in your lives." "That's a big step," Elena said, though he could see she was touched by the offer. "It is," Daniel agreed, "but Michael will be there for his residency. And you mentioned you've been considering opening a practice in London. You remembered that?" she asked, surprised. "I remember everything you tell me," he said simply. Elena studied his face for a long moment. Then, with a gentleness that made his heart ache, she placed her hand on his cheek. "You really have changed." Before Daniel could respond, she leaned up and kissed him softly on the lips. It was brief, almost tentative, but filled with promise. "Good night, Daniel," she whispered, slipping into her room before he could react. Daniel stood in the hallway, touching his lips where hers had been. For the first time in 23 years, he felt truly, completely happy. The next 3 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity and emotion. True to his word, Daniel began looking for an apartment in London. He spent weekends with Michael, helping him set up his place, getting to know him better with each passing day. Though still cautious, Michael was opening up more, sharing stories from his childhood, asking questions about Daniel's life. Elena remained in Oxford, finishing up some work, but she and Daniel spoke daily by phone. Their conversations grew longer, more intimate as old walls slowly crumbled. On a warm Saturday in July, Daniel finally convinced Elena to come to London for dinner with him and Michael. He picked her up at the train station, his heart racing at the sight of her stepping onto the platform, beautiful in a simple sundress that complemented her dark skin. "You look amazing," he said, kissing her cheek in greeting. "Thank you," she replied, a slight blush warming her face. "It's good to see you." "I've missed you," Daniel admitted as they walked to his car. "Phone calls aren't the same," Elena smiled. "No, they're not." She glanced at him. "How's it going with Michael?" "Better every day," Daniel said. "We're finding our rhythm." Last weekend we watched football together and actually cheered for the same team. Progress indeed, Elena laughed. He's excited about tonight, Daniel added. It's the first time the three of us will be together since everything happened. The drive to Daniel's new apartment was filled with easy conversation. He'd found a spacious but not ostentatious place in a good neighborhood, deliberately choosing something comfortable but not flashy. He wanted both Elena and Michael to feel at ease there. Michael was waiting when they arrived, having used the key Daniel had given him. The sight of her son and his father standing together in the kitchen, preparing appetizers, brought tears to Elena's eyes. "Mom!" Michael called, coming to hug her. "You're finally here." Dad's been checking his watch every 2 minutes for the past hour. The casual use of Dad wasn't lost on either Daniel or Elena. It had started just a week ago, awkward at first but growing more natural with each use. Every time Michael said it, Daniel felt a surge of joy and gratitude. "Dinner's almost ready," Daniel said, unable to keep the smile from his face. "I made your favorite, Elena. At least what used to be your favorite. Grilled salmon with that spicy mango salsa you loved." "You remembered," Elena said. "Touched, like I said," Daniel replied softly. "I remember everything about you." The evening was warm and relaxed, filled with laughter and stories. Michael shared updates about his first weeks of residency. Eleanor talked about her decision to finally open that London practice she'd been considering. And Daniel watched them both, his heart full to bursting with love for this family he never knew he had. After dinner, they moved to the living room with glasses of wine. Michael took the armchair, leaving Daniel and Elena to sit together on the sofa. Without thinking, Daniel placed his arm along the back of the couch, not quite touching Elena, but making the space for her to move closer if she wanted. To his delight, she did, settling against his side as the conversation continued. The simple contact felt like coming home. As the evening wound down, Michael stood and stretched. "Well, I should get going." "Early shift tomorrow. You could stay," Daniel offered. "The guest room is all set up." Michael smiled but shook his head. "Thanks, but my place is closer to the hospital." He hugged his mother, then, after a brief hesitation, hugged Daniel too. This was good. We should do it again soon. After he left, Daniel and Elena remained on the sofa, now sitting even closer. The silence between them was comfortable, intimate. "He called me Dad," Daniel said softly. "It still amazes me every time." "He's healing," Eleanor replied. "So we all are." Daniel turned slightly to look at her. "And us, are we healing too?" Eleanor met his gaze. "I think we're doing more than healing, Daniel. I think we're starting something new." Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Daniel leaned forward and kissed her. Unlike their brief kiss at the hotel, this one deepened, years of separation and longing melting away as they found each other again. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. "I love you, Elena," he whispered. "I never stopped loving you." "Not really." Elena's eyes glistened with tears. "I tried to stop loving you," she admitted, "for so long. But seeing you with Michael, the way you fought for him, for us, you've reminded me of all the reasons I fell in love with you in the first place. Does this mean—" Daniel left the question unfinished, hardly daring to hope. "It means I'm willing to try," Elena said, "to see where this leads. No promises, but hope," Daniel finished for her. "Yes," she agreed, smiling through her tears. "Hope." They sat together on the sofa late into the night, talking, laughing, occasionally kissing, making plans and dreaming dreams. And when Elena finally said she should go to her hotel, Daniel asked her to stay instead. "Just to sleep," he clarified quickly. I'm not ready for you to leave yet." Elena's smile was tender, as she reached up to touch his face. "Neither am I," she admitted. 3 weeks later, Michael started his Sunday morning rounds at St. Mary's Hospital. He was tired but satisfied, learning quickly and already impressing his supervisors. As he checked his first patient's chart, his phone buzzed with a text message. It was a photo from his mother. She and Daniel stood together on the Thames, the London Eye visible in the background. They were both smiling, Daniel's arm around Elena's shoulders, her head leaning against him. The caption read, "Your father is taking me to that new restaurant you recommended. Wish us luck." Michael smiled at the phone. It still felt strange, having his father suddenly in his life after all these years. Even stranger, watching his parents fall in love all over again. But good strange. The kind of strange that made his heart feel lighter. He typed back, "Have fun." "Don't wait up." He could almost hear his mother's embarrassed laugh at his teasing. Another text came through immediately. "Michael Carter, behave yourself." And then from Daniel's number, "Don't worry, son, I'll have her home at a reasonable hour. Unless she wants to stargaze after dinner." Michael laughed out loud, drawing curious looks from a passing nurse. His phone buzzed again with a final message from his mother. "We love you," 3 simple words that somehow meant everything. Michael tucked his phone away, still smiling as he continued his rounds. 3 months ago he'd been a new graduate with a single mother and an unknown father. Now he had both parents in his life supporting him, loving him. Nothing was perfect. They were still figuring things out, still healing old wounds, still learning to be a family. But they were doing it together, and that, Michael decided, was what mattered most. 3 months passed in a blur of new beginnings. The crisp autumn air swept through London as Daniel hurried up the steps to Elena's new office in Kensington. He carried a small bouquet of her favorite flowers, pink peonies, and a bag with take-out lunch from the Indian restaurant she loved. Today marked the grand opening of her psychology practice, and he couldn't be prouder. The receptionist recognized him immediately. "Go right in, Mr. Whitmore. She's between appointments." Daniel knocked lightly on the door marked Dr. Elena Carter before pushing it open. The sight of Elena behind her desk, glasses perched on her nose as she reviewed patient notes, made his heart skip, just as it had when they were college students. She looked up and smiled, the small wrinkles around her eyes crinkling in a way that only made her more beautiful to him. "This is a nice surprise. I come bearing gifts," Daniel said, placing the flowers and food on her desk. "How's the first official day going?" Elena stood and came around the desk to kiss him softly. "Busy, good busy. 3 patients this morning, 2 more this afternoon." She inhaled the scent of the peonies. "These are lovely." "Thank you." "You're lovely," Daniel replied, pulling her into a hug. "And amazing. And brilliant." Elena laughed against his chest. "All right, that's enough flattery. What did you do wrong?" "Nothing," Daniel protested with mock offense. "Can't a man bring flowers to his girlfriend on her big day without suspicion?" Girlfriend. The word still felt new, exciting. They'd been officially dating for 2 months now, taking things slowly but steadily. Daniel stayed at his new apartment, while Elena had found her own place not far from Michael's. They spent most evenings together, alternating between their homes, often including Michael for dinner when his hospital schedule allowed. "I suppose he can," Elena conceded, her eyes twinkling. "Now tell me what's in that bag." "I'm starving." They settled on the small sofa in the corner of her office, sharing chicken tikka masala and garlic naan while Elena talked about her morning patients, and Daniel updated her on his latest project, a healthcare app designed to help low-income patients access medical care more easily. "Michael thinks it could be really useful at St. Mary's," Daniel said. "He's going to help me test the beta version next month." Elena smiled. "You two have become quite the team." It was true. The relationship between father and son had strengthened with each passing week. They shared a love of football, technology, and surprisingly, cooking. Every Sunday that Michael had free, he'd come to Daniel's apartment where they'd try new recipes together. Sometimes disasters, sometimes unexpected successes. "He's still mad I beat him at squash last weekend," Daniel admitted. "Claims I cheated." "Did you?" "Of course not. I'm just naturally athletic and graceful." Elena laughed, nearly choking on her food. "Right? Like the time you tried to show off on the Thames boat tour and almost fell overboard." Daniel grinned. "Minor setback. My general athletic prowess remains undisputed." As they finished lunch, Daniel helped her clean up. Their movements were synchronized now, comfortable, like they'd been doing this dance forever instead of just a few months. He found himself watching her, memorizing the small details, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, how her laugh started low and built into something musical and full. "What?" Elena asked, catching him staring. "Just thinking how lucky I am," he replied honestly, "to have found you again, to have this second chance." Elena's expression softened. She reached up to touch his face, her palm warm against his cheek. "We're both lucky." Daniel leaned down to kiss her, then reluctantly checked his watch. "I should let you get back to work." Dinner tonight? At my place, Elena confirmed. Michael's coming too. He wants to tell us something important, apparently. Any idea what it's about? Elena shook her head. He was very mysterious on the phone. Just said he needed to talk to both of us. Sounds serious, Daniel remarked, feeling a flutter of concern. I'll bring wine. Red or white? Better bring both, Elena suggested. Just in case. That evening, Daniel arrived at Elena's apartment with 2 bottles of wine and a container of fresh-baked cookies from the bakery down the street. The small but elegant space reflected Elena perfectly. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, and walls lined with books and family photos. In recent weeks, pictures of Daniel had begun to appear among them. Daniel and Michael at a football match, Daniel and Elena on the London Eye, and one precious photo of all 3 of them at dinner. Heads close together, smiling broadly. Daniel was arranging the wine and cookies in the kitchen when he heard the front door open and Michael's voice greeting Elena. He wiped his hands on a towel and went to join them. Michael looked tired but animated. His hospital scrubs had been replaced by jeans and a navy sweater, but the slight shadows under his eyes revealed the long hours of his residency. "Hey, Dad," he said, accepting Daniel's hug with an ease that still amazed them both. "Rough day?" Daniel asked, noting the tension in his son's shoulders. "Long," Michael admitted, "but good. Really good, actually. That's part of what I want to talk to you both about." Elena brought glasses of wine for herself and Daniel, and sparkling water for Michael, who couldn't drink since he was on call later that night. They settled in the living room, Michael taking the armchair while Daniel and Elena sat together on the sofa. "So," Elena prompted gently, "what's this important news?" Michael took a deep breath, looking suddenly nervous. "2 things, actually. First, I've been offered a special research position at St. Mary's working on pediatric cardiac care. It's extremely competitive. They only select 1 resident per year." "Michael, that's wonderful," Elena exclaimed, leaning forward to squeeze his hand. "Congratulations, son," Daniel added, feeling a surge of pride. "That's a huge honor." Michael nodded, a smile breaking through his serious expression. "It means longer hours and more responsibility, but it's exactly the field I want to specialize in." "We're so proud of you," Elena said, her eyes shining. "Thanks," Michael replied. "But there's something else." He hesitated, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Elena gasped softly. Daniel felt his eyebrows rise in surprise. "Is that—" Elena began. Michael nodded, opening the box to reveal a delicate diamond ring. "I'm going to ask Sarah to marry me." For a moment, both parents sat in stunned silence. Then Elena was up and hugging her son tightly, laughing and crying at once. Daniel followed, clapping Michael on the back before being pulled into the family embrace. Sarah was a nurse Michael had been dating for 6 months. They'd met during his first week at St. Mary's and had been inseparable ever since. Daniel and Elena had met her several times, instantly warming to her quick wit and kind heart. "When are you going to ask her?" Daniel wanted to know after they'd settled back into their seats. "This weekend," Michael replied. "I'm taking her to that restaurant overlooking the Thames where we had our first date. I've already spoken to her parents. They're thrilled." "It's happening so fast," Elena murmured, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "When it's right, you know," Michael said simply. "And Sarah is right for me. She makes me better." He looked slightly embarrassed. "Besides, after watching you 2 find each other again after all these years, it made me realize you shouldn't wait when you find the person you're meant to be with." Daniel felt Elena's hand slip into his. He squeezed it gently, his heart full. "Have you thought about timing?" Elena asked. "With your new research position and her nursing schedule, we're thinking next summer," Michael said. "Give us time to plan properly and maybe find a place together." He looked suddenly uncertain. "What do you both think?" "Honestly?" Elena smiled through her tears. "I think Sarah is wonderful, and that you 2 are perfect together. If you're happy, I'm happy." "Same here," Daniel added sincerely. "Sarah's terrific, and the way you light up when she's around." He shook his head, smiling. "That's the real deal, son." Michael visibly relaxed. "Good. That means a lot." He looked at them both, his expression growing serious again. "There's something else I wanted to ask. Dad, would you be my best man?" Daniel felt his breath catch. Of all the things he might have expected, this wasn't one of them. "Me? Are you sure?" What about Tom or your other friends from medical school? They'll be groomsmen, Michael said. But I want you standing next to me. He looked down at his hands for a moment, then back up, his eyes sincere. I know we haven't had much time together, and we lost a lot of years, but these past few months getting to know you, it's meant everything. You're my father, and I want you by my side on the most important day of my life. Daniel felt tears burning in his eyes. I'd be honored, he managed to say. Truly honored. Elena was openly crying now, not bothering to wipe away the tears streaming down her cheeks. My little boy, she whispered. Getting married? Michael rolled his eyes but smiled. Mom, I'm 23. Hardly a little boy. You'll always be my little boy, she insisted, even when you're 60 with grandchildren of your own. The conversation flowed easily after that, discussing proposal plans, potential wedding venues, and Michael's new research position. Through it all, Daniel felt a sense of wonder. 4 months ago, he hadn't even known he had a son. Now he was going to be that son's best man at his wedding. Later, after Michael had left for his night shift, Daniel helped Eleanor clean up the kitchen. She was unusually quiet, her movements slow and thoughtful. Penny, for your thoughts, Daniel asked, drying the last wineglass. Elena sighed, leaning against the counter. Just processing. My son is getting married. It's wonderful and terrifying all at once. He's making a good choice, Daniel said. Sarah is special. She is, Elena agreed. And they're good together. I just worry, she trailed off. About everything. If they're too young. If they're rushing. If marriage will add too much pressure with their demanding careers. She looked up at him. Is that silly? Daniel put the glass down and moved to stand in front of her, taking both her hands in his. It's not silly. It's being a parent. We want to protect them from every possible hurt. He smiled gently. But we can't. And honestly, I think they're going to be just fine. They love each other, they respect each other, and they make each other better. That's a solid foundation. Eleanor nodded, leaning forward to rest her forehead against his chest. When did you get so wise? Losing you and Michael for 22 years taught me a few things, Daniel replied softly. Like not taking love for granted when you find it. Eleanor looked up at him, her dark eyes searching his face. I love you, Daniel. I think I always have, even when I was trying not to. Though they'd been dating for months now, it was the first time she'd said those words directly. Daniel felt his heart swell. I love you too, he whispered, bending to kiss her softly. Always have, always will. They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, two people who had found their way back to each other against all odds. The following Saturday, Daniel, Elena, and Sarah's parents sat at a corner table in the elegant riverside restaurant, waiting anxiously for the young couple's arrival. They'd all been sworn to secrecy, promising Michael they wouldn't give anything away. I'm so nervous, Elena admitted, clutching Daniel's hand under the table. What if she says no? She won't, Daniel assured her. You've seen the way she looks at him. Just then, Michael and Sarah walked in, hand in hand. She was petite, with curly auburn hair and bright blue eyes that lit up when she spotted them. Surprise, Sarah called, hurrying over. Michael didn't tell me you all would be here. Michael shot them a quick wink behind Sarah's back. Everything was going according to plan. Just a little impromptu family dinner, Daniel said smoothly, to celebrate Michael's new research position. The evening progressed perfectly. The food was excellent, the wine flowing freely. Sarah chatted animatedly about her work in the pediatric ward, her passion for helping children, evident in every word. Watching her, Daniel could easily see why Michael had fallen for her. Her warmth and enthusiasm were contagious. After dessert, Michael suggested a walk along the river path. It's such a beautiful night, he said casually. And there's a perfect view of the city lights from the little park up ahead. The others exchanged knowing glances, but played along. As they reached the park, strung with fairy lights for the autumn season, Michael guided Sarah to a bench overlooking the water. The parents hung back, giving them space but staying close enough to witness the moment. They watched as Michael took both Sarah's hands in his, speaking words too quiet to hear. Then he was kneeling, pulling out the ring box. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with surprise, when she nodded vigorously, throwing her arms around Michael's neck. The watching families broke into applause and cheers. She said yes. Michael called to them, his face alight with joy as he slipped the ring onto Sarah's finger. The celebration that followed was filled with tears, laughter, and many toasts. Daniel found himself watching Elena throughout the evening, seeing her happiness for their son reflected in every smile, every gesture. On the taxi ride home, Elena leaned against Daniel's shoulder, emotionally exhausted but content. "Our son is getting married," she murmured. "How did this happen so quickly?" Daniel kissed the top of her head. "Life has a way of surprising us. 4 months ago I was alone in my big house, thinking I had everything I needed. Now I know I had nothing that really mattered." Elena looked up at him. "And now?" "Now I have everything," he said simply. "You, Michael, a family, the things money can't buy." Elena smiled and settled more comfortably against him. "Stay at my place tonight." "Try and stop me," Daniel replied, pulling her closer. The weeks that followed were hectic but joyful. Michael and Sarah began planning their summer wedding while adjusting to their demanding hospital schedules. Daniel threw himself into his healthcare app project, working closely with Michael to ensure it truly served patients' needs. Eleanor's practice grew steadily, her reputation for compassionate care bringing new clients each week. Through it all, Daniel and Elena's relationship deepened. They still maintained separate homes, but spent most nights together. Their past hurts healed more with each passing day, replaced by new memories, new understanding. One crisp November evening, Daniel invited Elena for a special dinner at his apartment. He'd spent the afternoon cooking her favorite meal, herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables, and setting the table with candles and fresh flowers. When she arrived, her eyes widened at the romantic scene. "What's the occasion?" she asked, accepting the glass of wine he offered. "Does there need to be one?" Daniel countered with a smile. They chatted comfortably through dinner, sharing stories from their day. Elena talked about a breakthrough with a particularly difficult young patient. Daniel described his latest meeting with investors for his healthcare app. After dessert, a chocolate souffle that Daniel was particularly proud of not burning, he suggested they move to the sofa. "With their wine, I've been thinking," he said as they settled into the cushions. "Always." "Dangerous," Elena teased. Daniel smiled. "Michael and Sarah's engagement got me thinking about the future, about what I want for the next chapter of my life." Elena looked at him curiously. "And what have you concluded?" Daniel took a deep breath. "That I don't want to spend another day without you. That the past 4 months have been the happiest of my life. That I'm still madly in love with the same woman I fell for 23 years ago." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, similar to the one Michael had shown them weeks earlier, but older vintage. Elena's eyes widened. "Daniel." He opened the box to reveal a beautiful sapphire ring surrounded by small diamonds. "This was my grandmother's," he explained. "The only woman in my family who would have approved of you from the start." He smiled wryly. "She always told me to follow my heart, not my parents' expectations. I should have listened." Taking Elena's hand, he continued, "I know it might seem fast, but really it's been 23 years in the making. I love you, Elena Carter. Will you marry me?" Elena stared at the ring, then at Daniel's hopeful face. For one terrible moment he thought she might say no. Then she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "When you left me 23 years ago, I swore I'd never let you hurt me again." She touched the ring gently with one finger. "But life is funny. Here we are back where we started, but wiser, stronger." She looked up, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Yes, Daniel Whitmore. I'll marry you." Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her into a kiss that held 23 years of longing, regret, and finally, redemption. When they broke apart, Elena laughed softly. "Michael is going to be shocked. His parents getting engaged right after he does." "Actually," Daniel looked slightly sheepish. "He already knows. I asked for his blessing last week." Elena's eyes widened. "You asked our son's permission to marry me?" Daniel nodded. "It seemed right. After all, he's had you to himself for 22 years. I wanted to make sure he was okay with sharing." "And what did he say?" Elena asked, curious. "He said, 'It's about time, Dad. Mum's been waiting for you to get your act together.'" Elena laughed, the sound filling the room with joy. "Smart boy, our son." "The smartest," Daniel agreed, pulling her close again. The news of their engagement spread quickly. Michael and Sarah were delighted, immediately suggesting a double wedding that Elena firmly but lovingly rejected. One wedding per year is quite enough, thank you very much. Anna was thrilled for her brother, having grown genuinely fond of Elena over the past months. Even Mrs. Carter, initially skeptical, gave her blessing after a long talk with Daniel about his intentions. By Christmas, they had decided to move in together. After much discussion, they chose Elena's apartment. It was smaller than Daniel's, but felt more like a home to both of them. Daniel would keep his place as an office and guest quarters, for when Michael and Sarah needed space. The holiday season brought another surprise when Michael and Sarah announced they had found the perfect apartment just 3 blocks from Elena and Daniel. Close enough for Sunday dinners, far enough for privacy, Michael explained with a wink that made both his parents laugh. On Christmas Eve, the expanded family gathered at Elena's place, now Elena and Daniel's place. Michael and Sarah brought the dessert. Anna contributed expensive wine, and Mrs. Carter supervised the cooking with her usual no-nonsense efficiency. The apartment was filled with laughter, the scent of roasting turkey and the warm glow of belonging. After dinner, they exchanged gifts around the small tree in the corner. When it was Daniel's turn to give Elena her present, he handed her a plain envelope instead of a wrapped package. "What's this?" she asked, opening it curiously. Inside was a brochure for a small cottage in the countryside just outside London, along with a note that read, "For weekends, holidays and someday grandchildren to visit. All my love, Daniel." Eleanor looked up, tears in her eyes. "You bought us a cottage?" Daniel nodded. "I thought we could use a place to escape the city sometimes. It has a garden. I remember how much you loved gardening in college." "I can't believe you remembered that," Elena said softly. "I remember everything about you," Daniel replied, the words now a familiar refrain between them. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and they were alone in their bedroom, Elena nestled against Daniel's side, her head on his chest. "Happy?" he asked, stroking her hair. "More than I ever thought possible," she admitted. "If someone had told me last year that I'd be engaged to you, planning a wedding and watching our son prepare for his own marriage, I would have thought they were crazy." Daniel chuckled. "Life is full of surprises. Good ones lately," Elena said, tracing patterns on his chest with her finger. "Thank you for coming back into my life, for not giving up when things were difficult with Michael." "I'd do it all again," Daniel said seriously. "Every awkward moment, every hard conversation, because it led us here." Elena propped herself up to look at him. "Do you ever wonder what might have been if we'd stayed together all those years ago?" Daniel considered the question. "Sometimes. I wonder if we would have had more children. If we would have traveled more. If I would have started a different kind of business." He reached up to touch her face. "But then I look at Michael. How amazing he is. How much you did right raising him. And I think maybe things happened exactly as they needed to." "A rather optimistic view," Helena observed. "I prefer to think of it as making peace with the past," Daniel replied. "We can't change it, but we can learn from it." "And we did." Elena leaned down to kiss him softly. "When did you get so wise, Mr. Whitmore?" "When I almost lost everything that matters," he answered honestly, "and was given a second chance I didn't deserve." "You deserve happiness, Daniel," Elena murmured, settling back against his chest. "We all do." As they drifted toward sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, Daniel felt a profound sense of gratitude. His life had come full circle, bringing him back to the woman he had always loved and the son he never knew he had. The road had been long and winding, filled with mistakes and regrets, but somehow, miraculously, it had led him home. Spring arrived in a burst of color and light. The wedding plans were in full swing. Eleanor and Daniel had chosen a simple ceremony in May, 2 months before Michael and Sarah's larger celebration in July. On a warm April afternoon, Daniel sat in the garden of their weekend cottage, watching Elena plant flowers in the freshly turned soil. Her hands were covered in dirt, her face flushed with exertion, and Daniel thought she had never looked more beautiful. "Need help?" he called from his comfortable spot on the patio. Elena looked up, brushing a strand of hair from her face with her wrist. "You could fill the watering can." Daniel dutifully went to the outdoor tap, filling the green plastic can before bringing it to her. "You know, we could hire a gardener. Where's the fun in that?" Eleanor asked, patting the soil around a small rosebush. "I've been dreaming of having a garden again for years. My apartment balcony barely had room for a potted plant." Daniel crouched beside her. careful of his knees on the hard ground. "I love seeing you happy like this." Elena smiled at him, the sun highlighting the silver strands now mingling with the black in her hair. "I am happy. Ridiculously so." She sat back on her heels, surveying her work. "Life has a funny way of working out, doesn't it? If you told me 6 months ago that I'd be planning a wedding and planting roses at our country cottage, I would have laughed in your face. And yet here we are," Daniel said, taking her dirt-covered hand in his. "Here we are," she agreed softly. The sound of a car approaching made them both look up. Michael's blue sedan pulled into the small gravel driveway. "We have company," Daniel observed, standing and helping Elena to her feet. Michael and Sarah climbed out of the car, both smiling broadly. Sarah carried a large picnic basket. "Surprise," Sarah called. "We thought we'd join you for lunch." Elena hurried forward to hug them both, careful of her dirty hands. "What a wonderful surprise. Come in, come in. Let me just wash up." Inside the cottage, Daniel helped Sarah unpack the basket, while Michael and Elena chatted in the kitchen. The easy comfort between them all still amazed Daniel sometimes, how quickly they had become a true family. Over lunch on the patio, they discussed wedding plans, hospital gossip, and the progress of Daniel's healthcare app, which was now in beta testing at several hospitals, including St. Mary's. "We have some news," Michael said as they finished the fresh bread and cheese Sarah had brought. 2 pieces, actually. Daniel and Eleanor exchanged a glance. "Good news, I hope?" Elena asked. Michael nodded, taking Sarah's hand. "First, I've been officially accepted into the cardiology specialty track. It means an extra year of residency, but it's exactly what I want to do." "That's wonderful, Michael," Daniel said proudly. "Congratulations." "And the other news?" Elena prompted. Sarah grinned. "We found a house, a small terrace house near the hospital. It needs work, but the location is perfect and it has 3 bedrooms. 3. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Planning ahead?" Michael laughed. "Mom! 1 for us, 1 for an office, and 1 for guests. Don't start planning grandchildren yet. Speaking of planning," Daniel interjected, changing the subject, "have you 2 finished your vows yet?" "Only 3 months to go." The conversation shifted back to wedding details, but Daniel caught Elena's thoughtful expression as she watched Michael and Sarah together. He knew she was imagining the future. Grandchildren playing in this very garden. Family holidays. The expanding circle of love that had begun with the 3 of them. Later, after Michael and Sarah had left, Daniel and Elena sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. "He's happy," Elena said, leaning against Daniel's shoulder. "Truly happy." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "And so much of that is because of you. The way you raised him, the values you instilled in him." Eleanor looked up at him. "And now he has you too. The father he always wanted." Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I'm just grateful I got to know him at all, that you both let me into your lives." "It was the right time," Elena said simply. "We were all ready." They sat in comfortable silence as the light faded from the sky. In the distance, a bird called to its mate. A sweet, clear sound in the gathering dusk. 3 weeks until we're married," Daniel said softly. "Nervous?" Elena chuckled. "About marrying you?" "Not at all. About my mother trying to reorganize the entire ceremony the day before." "Absolutely," Daniel laughed. "She means well." "She does," Eleanor agreed. "And she's finally warming up to you." "Only took 23 years, Daniel quipped. Elena grew serious. "I've been thinking about something. After we're married, would you consider legally adopting Michael? I know he's an adult, but I think it would mean a lot to him. Make it official." Daniel felt his heart swell. "I would love that. More than I can say. But do you think he would want that? His name would still be Carter, of course, but legally, I've already talked to him about it," Elena admitted. "He brought it up first, actually. He wants to be your son in every way." Daniel had to blink back sudden tears. "Then yes. Absolutely yes." Elena reached up to touch his face, her fingers gentle against his skin. "I've never seen anyone work so hard to build relationships, to heal what was broken. It's one of the things I love most about you." "I had a lot to make up for," Daniel said simply. "And you have," Eleanor assured him, "many times over." As night fell completely, they remained on the porch, making plans for their future together. Holidays they would host, trips they would take, traditions they would build with Michael and Sarah, and someday grandchildren. The path ahead stretched before them, bright with promise and possibility. For Daniel, who had once measured his success in dollars and deals, the true measure had become this: the love of the woman beside him, the trust of the son he'd found, and the family they were building together. It was, he realized, the richest he had ever been. "We should go inside," Eleanor said eventually as the night air grew cool. "Early start tomorrow if we want to beat the traffic back to London." Daniel nodded, but made no move to get up. Instead, he tightened his arm around her shoulders. "Just a few more minutes," he murmured. "I want to remember this moment." Elena settled against him, understanding without words. Some moments deserved to be savored, to be held close to the heart. This was one of them. A quiet evening with the woman he loved, their son happy and thriving, their future stretching before them like an open road. The stars emerged one by one, pinpricks of light in the velvet sky. Daniel made a silent wish on the brightest one, not for wealth or success or fame, but for this feeling to last, for his family to remain strong and united, for love to continue to guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. And somewhere in the vast universe, perhaps someone was listening. Because in that moment, Daniel Whitmore, once lost, now found, felt truly blessed. What he had lost had been returned to him 100-fold. What had been broken had been made whole again. It was quite simply enough.